As the Tau Empire's Fire Caste has conquered many worlds and races through martial skill, this is not the approach first tried when contact is made by the Ethereals or the Farsight Enclaves. Often, the Tau will attempt to assimilate new aliens into their empire, and the Water Caste will normally function as the medium for such an action to occur. Through this approach, many races have been enlightened by the greater good rather than simply being destroyed, as would be the case with the Imperium of Man. These new allies will also bring new warriors and contributors to the Tau military and or society, and it is these auxiliary forces that we shall be discussing today. Whilst there are a couple that are more commonly known and utilised by the Fire Caste, there are in fact a large number of hired, assimilated or allied auxiliaries by this point. We shall look at each race in brief, how and when they were first brought into the Tau Empire, and detail the roles their forces play on the battlefield or in society where such information is documented. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and welcome to 40k Stories. Water Caste ambassadors will be the main source of contact for any non-Tau that have not become a target of the Fire Caste. Commonly, they will be the first point of contact between the greater good and other races, mainly due to their high skill with linguistics and diplomacy. The Water Caste show an incredible talent for learning other languages, both spoken and physical, allowing them to communicate with other races easily and even picking up on nuances that most would miss. They are thus able to negotiate with great success, which is why so many races have been brought into the Empire in some way. Admittedly, their success rate is not 100%, otherwise the Fire Caste would never be needed to conquer a world or even fight a battle that isn't based on defending what they already own. Assumedly, the Water Caste would also negotiate ceasefires if the Ethereals deemed it appropriate, but that would normally be when an enemy is broken and suing for peace, as opposed to actually negotiating a long-standing truce that allowed the enemy to remain independent of the Tau. At least that's my opinion. It is actually unknown what the Water Caste success rate is, but given that there are over 20 full-blown septs and an unknown number of worlds part of the Empire belonging to other races, I would suspect they've probably pulled off a good number of successful negotiations and assimilations to this point. Despite all their skills, however, there is one race that the Water Caste has tried and failed to recruit on numerous occasions. The Orcs were one of the first races encountered by the Tau during the first sphere of expansion. Orcs are flipping everywhere, and they quickly proved themselves beyond all hope of assimilation due to their excessively warlike and borderline barbaric nature that the Water Caste simply could not overcome. As a result, the Orcs are given a rare kill-on-contact order that gave the greater good its first taste of full-blown interspecies warfare. The Water Caste do not have many famous individuals amongst their ranks, for their role is perhaps far less grandiose and saga-worthy than that of the Fire Caste warriors. Nonetheless, one of them has become renowned and revered. Poro Dalith Kais Tui Luitan was born on Dalith, as indicated by his name, a world from the First Sphere expansion that was also the home of Commander Puretide. During late M40, about two-thirds of the way through the Second Sphere expansion, he launched a crusade of his own, but rather than a military conflict, it was a diplomatic mission to recruit as many auxiliaries as possible. Such was the success of Poro Luitan, he became known as the Golden Ambassador in recognition of his efforts. Despite this, he actually only recruited 3 new auxiliaries, which is probably a lot for a single ambassador, but is still less than his epithet might have suggested. He tried to recruit 2 other races, the Hrud and the Arakan, but he failed in this endeavour, and it would in fact be against the Arakan that a young Commander Farsight would begin his rise to command and glory. The 3 races the Golden Ambassador did manage to recruit are sadly poorly documented, and as I'm a member of the Enclaves rather than the main empire, and we do not entreaty with them ourselves, I'm kind of lacking in any first-hand information. The Thraxians seem to have some physical similarities to Tyranids, being armoured in chitin and possessing more than one set of arms. Their assimilation supposedly came during the first sphere of expansion, though this would clash with the Golden Ambassador having recruited them, as Tau don't live that long. Oshova's artificially extended lifespan is at 300 years or so, which is by far the longest in our race's history. We know even less of the Formosians. In fact, we know nothing of them, save that they were recruited by Poro Luitan. No physical features even, which is, quite frankly, a blooming disappointment. We know a little more of the Greet, an invertebrate species, and the final of the Golden Ambassador's recruited races. They come from the oceanic world of Isla Su, and joined the Empire as part of a deal of production for protection. The Earth Caste built great floating factories on Isla Su, and the Greet used them as payment for military protection from the Tau. Assumedly what they make is for the benefit of the greater good, otherwise I see actually no upside for the Tau in that deal. Many races have joined the Tau over the centuries, whether as fully assimilated servants of the greater good, or simply as mercenaries or allies of convenience. Unfortunately, records do not all clearly state what it took for them to sign on with the Tau, and in some cases, their role in Tau society is not even mentioned. For example, the aforementioned Formosians have no known role, along with the Rangon. The spacebound Yabi Yabi do not have a known purpose either, but it is assumed that they will aid the Air Caste in one form or another, given that they can't go planet-side. The other race that presumably works with the Air Caste is the Geatrix, a race renowned for its skill at travelling through the void of space due to their affinity with it. In a military capacity, the races known as the Gaugs, the Herenians, and the Moralians are all known mercenaries employed by the Tau, but their exact role alongside the Fire Caste is unknown. The Herenians apparently are well known for their light infantry, which is something I suppose. The Tau often use their auxiliaries to cover for their deficiencies on the battlefield, so I suspect that at least one, if not all of these groups is focused on melee combat, which fire warriors are very bad at, as many of you will know. Sorry guys. Tau fleets can also be supplemented by vessels of the Demiurge, a seemingly spacebound race that excel at mining and trade, that possess greater technology than humans. Their ships are incredibly rare, only being sighted 2 or 3 times alongside the Tau, but in short-range engagements they are lethal, and can even ram enemy ships in some way. The Demiurge are known to hate the Orcs for some reason, but we do not know exactly what relation they have with the Tau. They may simply be allies rather than being fully integrated into the Empire, or they could be mercenaries like the Gaugs and the Moralians. In civilian life, the Earth Caste primary alien aid comes from the Brachyura, who hail from a planet of the same name. These tiny crustaceans are experts in fine construction, and without them, the plasma generators now ubiquitous in the Empire would either be harder, slower, or perhaps even impossible to build. Probably just slower and a tad trickier, the blueprints do exist. There are a couple of menial auxiliaries as well. The Gnosh and the slow but sturdy Anthrazods are used for cargo hauling and asteroid mining respectively, meaning the two probably work together quite a lot to get materials out of an asteroid and over to the Earth Caste for construction/refinement. Only one auxiliary is known to have gone extinct. The Poktroon were the first known alien race to join the Tau, but died due to a strange plague that the Tau were immune to. Such things can happen, but it is curious and noteworthy nevertheless. Never willing to let resources go to waste, the Tau inherited the homeworld of the Poktroon and renamed it Borkan, and that sept has gone on to produce many renowned Earth Caste scientists, whilst the planet itself is home to some of the most prestigious universities and military academies in the Empire. Finally, we have the Nagi and the Nikasar. The Nagi are capable of using mind control, and initially the Tau fought against them. Given the absolute authority of the Ethereals, this raises more than a few eyebrows here. However, the two factions are now allied, and the worm-like Nagi are trusted enough to even be advisors to the Ethereals themselves. Again, more raised eyebrows, I would imagine. As for the Nikasar, they are a race with seemingly prodigious psychic powers, but they are kept far away from the Imperium to prevent any further xenophobia, and so their power in relation to human psykers cannot be measured. That, and the fact that they are said to be unsuited for fighting on the ground due to a lack of mobility. It is known that their ships, known as Daus, with a H in the middle, are psychically piloted by their captains, so they are probably pretty powerful, and they make capable scouts and explorers even if they are unable to travel through the warp. There are 3 more auxiliaries that are documented, and these are present in both the main Tau Empire and the Farside enclaves. The first, perhaps the best known of these, is the Kroot. It may shock some of you to know that the Kroot are basically mercenaries. Their union with the Tau involves payment to the Kroot core worlds, and despite the supposed exclusivity of this partnership, Kroot have been known to work with other races, though assumedly not against the Tau because problems. The Kroot are humanoid, but possess many avian traits such as beaks and hollow bones, which may indicate a different origin for them. There is a flying Kroot known as the Kroot Hawk, which is revered as a potential ancestor, so it's more likely than you might expect. They are excellent trackers, seemingly able to see partly in infrared, and use their sweat as a pheromone trail should the need arise. Perhaps the starkest feature of Kroot biology is their adaptability. Kroot will consume their dead enemies and even their fallen kindred, to assimilate useful traits in the former case, and to preserve the dead Kroot's warrior spirit in the latter. The consumption of enemies is determined by the Shapers, Kroot leaders who are skilled in identifying what useful traits are there and what the results and benefits of such a move would be. The possible evolutions are astounding, mainly because much of Kroot DNA is blank and so able to be coded with the useful traits. It doesn't always work as intended, as shown by the mental degradation of Kroot hounds and the Krootoks, and there are some races that cannot or will not be consumed by the Kroot. Tyranids are inedible. This seemingly doesn't apply to Genestealer hybrids, but the Kroot can taste the difference. Living metal / Necron has been shown to have horrific side effects. The Tau are a forbidden meal due to their alliance, and Chaos-corrupted humans are also supposedly off the menu, though this doesn't stop it happening, as it is sometimes hard to tell the difference. When it works though, there has been evidence of incredible evolutions. Kroot who consumed the flesh of the Eldar were able to develop powerful psychic abilities, for example. The Kroot and Tau first allied whilst the Kroot worlds were occupied by Orcs. The presumably Shaper Angkor Proc beseeched the Tau for aid, and over the next decade they cleansed the Kroot systems of greenskins, including their homeworld of Petch. It is now commonplace for the Kroot to fight alongside the Tau, with their kindreds often used as shock troops or potentially as jungle fighters. The Tau aren't keen on their cannibalistic tendencies and hope to wean the Kroot off the habit, but I suspect that this will be impossible, so they put up with it as long as they don't eat the Tau. The Kroot hold a number of worlds, and their homeworld of Petch is in the Perdus Rift region to the northeast of the Empire. Those Kroot who travel with the Farsight expedition and who now call the Enclaves their home do not seemingly have a specific homeworld in these septs, but they are there, perhaps instead inhabiting their war spheres. Sorry, I guess the warp's degraded my memory or something. These slow-moving spacecraft are almost like floating towns, seemingly capable of becoming conventional ones when the war sphere lands, and are probably capable of warp travel, as the Kroot have no problem using warp drives, unlike the Korvatra, the Tau word for their navy. The Vespid hail from a planet of the same name, a gas giant near the once isolated sept of Dianoi. Its upper atmosphere contains many rocky formations, and it is there that the sort of insectoid, sort of humanoid Vespid live. As for the ones in the Enclaves, it isn't stated again, but the world of Kovar-Shi is stated as Vespertine, so it could be there. Their females are larger and more resilient, and they will venture deep into the conical rocks to mine crystals, since they're the only ones tough enough to get down there. These crystals form much of the Vespid technology, particularly their signature weapon, the Neutron Blaster, but we should discuss that once we've discussed how they came to be allied with the Tau. When the Water Caste came to Vespid, they made pretty much no headway, as the Vespid language and mindset was, well, completely alien to them. Excuse the pun. The only headway made was when the Ethereals intervened, commissioning the Earth Caste to create a communion helm that to this day the scientists don't truly understand. When the leaders of the Vespid put on the helms, they were suddenly completely compliant and open to the greater good, and thus their race was completely assimilated into the Empire. It is my hypothesis that the helm would use the Nagi's mind control abilities in some way, but whatever the case, the Vespid and the Tau have been in harmony ever since. For some odd reason, only the Vespid strain leaders, the equivalent to squad sergeants, are issued with the communion helms, making them vital for interspecies communication on the battlefield. As far as weaponry goes, Vespid warriors, known as Stingwings to the Imperium, use the Neutron Blaster. This weapon uses the crystal's mind on Vespid, which is tuned and modulated by the vibrations of the Stingwing's wings. These crystals are encased in a Tau-made weapon, and have the subatomic particles known as neutrons fired through them, cutting through even Astartes' power armor. The Vespid are also the only ones capable of using the Neutron Blaster, since their wings are the only things capable of modulating the crystal to make the weapon usable. Haha, sorry orcs. As a result of their speed and potent armor-piercing weaponry, the Vespid, known as the Malkor to the Tau, which literally translates to insect of the air, are often used as part of an aerial assault with crisis battlesuits, or as scouts alongside the legendary heroic Pathfinders. They can also work in concert with Kroot in a formation known as the Allied Advance Cadre. In this situation, the auxiliaries combine very effectively. The Kroot's hunting skills are seemingly partially passed to the Vespid, and the communion helms allow for strategic information to quickly pass from higher command to the entire group via the strain leaders. Such a force is capable of holding vastly superior enemies at bay without support, and speaks volumes as to the potential of the greater good. The final known auxiliaries in the Tau Empire and Farsight enclaves are the Gue'vesa, humans who have joined the greater good. Some of these humans joined willingly, but others did not. Many were assimilated during or following the Damocles Gulf Crusade, stranded in Tau space and faced with death or integration. In the aftermath of the Crusade, Commander Farsight's reclamation of the Damocles Gulf from the retreating Imperials greatly increased the numbers of Gue'vesa, which roughly translates to human helpers. Whilst they now serve the greater good, many of the Gue'vesa are still permitted to worship the Emperor, but their exact treatment by the Tau is unknown. All I can tell you is that the humans in the enclaves on Gue'vesa Rios are very well treated. I can't speak for the rest of the Empire where the Ethereals hold sway because, Ethereals. Many Gue'vesa are stationed in the outer reaches of the Tau Empire, and whilst they are predominantly followers of the greater good, their colonies are still fearful to some degree of what would become of them were the Imperium to come crashing back against the Tau. I have a hypothesis. It's called the bolt pistol. To the face. On the battlefield, the Gue'vesa are organised into similar squads as they would be in the Imperial Guard, but their command structure seemingly tops out at sergeants instead of going into full-blown regiments. I don't know why, because the Guard work in such a hierarchical way that disrupting said command structure could be seen as detrimental, but it may be that they have lieutenants and colonels who just answer to the Fire Caste and stay out of combat. I would suspect that priests, commissars and psychers will be largely absent, commissars entirely, and the abhumans I can't really be sure. And otherwise, I really couldn't be 100% as to the composition of a Gue'vesa army, because it's basically whatever got left behind by the Imperials, which could have been flipping anything. Their production capabilities are usually limited, meaning that they can't manufacture much better weapons of their own beyond their usual flak armour and las guns, but in times of war, they are often issued with pulse rifles as standard and potentially marklights and things should the situation call for it. They are used as a hybrid of the close combat savagery of the Kroot and the ranged dominance of the Fire Warriors, which is pretty much what Kroot are anyway. Oh, not what Kroot are, what humans are, goodness me. They can even function as shock troops, as evidenced in the Hylock Freemen used in the Jericho Reach campaign. Squat humans from a high-gravity world with extra armour, probably on a level of carapace armour. Note, not squats, just short humans. And so, we finish our look at the auxiliaries of the Tau Empire. They are incredibly diverse, both biologically and tactically, and they all play critical roles in aiding the greater good. Whether there will be more auxiliaries who join the Empire or Farsight enclaves remain to be seen, but since the Tau's door is always open to those who are willing, it would not surprise me if there are many more alliances or deals to be made by the Water Caste. Now then, we have another Legion world to visit. Unfortunately, one of them doesn't exist anymore, and they're probably still scouring the sector of the other one to see if I'm around. Never mind, I can avoid them. Right, off to the bridge to plot a new course. Ladies and gentlemen, we're off to New Seria. Thank you for watching. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and I will see you all again. Thank you very much, and goodbye.